Oh my gosh. Look at the time. Look at how time rushes along. We're in the middle of pandemic year 2 now. We're not at the beginning, we're in the middle. And it's also Thursday, and that means it's time for the Nerd Log. We're going to talk about what's new and different in New Relic. We're also going to talk about like stuff that we've been doing for the last year or so that's kind of exciting and that no one's used yet. So I'm trying to get some attention, and I've got some great guests. We got 3 segments today, so it's going to be a busy one. If you're watching this on YouTube, that doesn't apply to you. So, welcome. With me, as always, is my co-host, sporting an amazing Pride background, Daniel. Daniel, say hi to the people.
Hi, everyone, and also happy Pride, everyone. The world is opening up, and it's Pride. I couldn't be happier.
Oh, so good. So good. I'm going to a big trans picnic tomorrow. That's like all the trans people in Portland. Good stuff.
Do they have good food there?
Well, that's the thing. It's a potluck. And so it's mixed, I'll say. And I'm a very utility player. Like I'm not trying to stand out from the crowd. So I am bringing cold drinks because there are never enough. There are never enough cold drinks. Nobody brings the right stuff. Going down from the top, we got Alex here. Alex, say hi to the people. Tell them what you do for New Relic.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I am a product manager for the Query Experience, so all things Nurgle.
A query experience. I love it. I love it. I want to just have like a garage show tomorrow night with like the query experience is going to be there. We got a front bottoms cover band. It's going to be a whole thing.
We can be a band. We could definitely make a band.
The query experience. I love it. And we've got Ashton here. Ashton, say hi to the people. This is your, I believe, second Nerd Log segment. Is that right?
It is. So yeah, I am Ashton. I am a senior software engineer on the Query Experience team. And I would not be good in a band. You don't want me there.
Okay. All right. Fair. So I'm gonna put down Ashton as a yes with a question mark on joining the band. If you could write Regex live on stage, maybe we could get Sam Aaron to add that to Sonic Pi next year, the like coding and music software, to be like, how do you play like a tune from Regex? Like have each chord name come through. This isn't that accessible to anyone else who might be watching the show. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Alex, what are we talking about today in the Query Experience?
Yeah, so we're very excited. We're announcing today Regex is going to be live. I know this is something that people are asking for. If you don't know what Regex is, it's a great way to pinpoint parts of your data that you're querying and use it in many, many different ways. You can put it in your select clause, your where clause, your facet. And prime examples, people can pinpoint parts of their URL, or more specifically, they can pinpoint parts of their logs. And logs can be very complex and do a lot of different things. And you can say, pull out the IP addresses of my logs, or pull out the timestamps, or pull out all these durations we have and average off of them. So a lot can be done with Regex. And I think the example we're going to show you is going to be based off of URLs, which is a great example. And I will pass it off to Ashton.
Yeah, so Regex is a special place in my heart. It's actually the first modern computer science skill I had, was trying to get really good at Regex. It's actually back in the day when I was in tech support at New Relic. There was a particular problem that you could have with accounts called metric explosion, which we're not going to get into today. And lawnmower sounds, which is actually appropriate for talking about metric explosion. It was sort of the first thing that I ever got really deep on, because we need to use it for work. And also, I had the very special privilege of getting to teach 5 other people Regex. And that's sort of where I learned that to truly master something, you have to teach other people, because they will throw you these patterns that sort of look right, and you sort of get into the thing of obviously two Regexes can be fundamentally identical, but also they can be ones that work in the same way for the set you have, but do not function the same. And so I love that stuff. So Regex is a very powerful tool for filtering strings, controlling strings, and even editing them. And I think, Ashton, you're going to show us some of that good business.
Yeah, and in particular, not just Regex in general, but a new feature, the Regex capture function. So being able to extract values using Regex. So
so if we have now, I know you showed this to me at the demo yesterday, but I'm actually just kind of kenning it now, which is if you have a string which is maybe, some long request URL or something that contains things like account ID and another piece and a third piece, you can capture those as separate pieces on the data display.
Yeah, exactly. So you can segment out, you can extract little bits of a complex string to simplify it, boil it down, extract the pieces you want, and do some more fancy stuff. So what we're looking at here, probably want to do this real quick.
So is this available in every single keyword, or is it only available in like certain things like facet or like select or like all keywords?
Yeah, so capture is an evaluable, so it is not an aggregator, so you can use it in any piece of the query string. So the example we'll show here in a second is going to be facet, but you can use it in the where, the select clause, wherever you could normally put an attribute reference, you could put a capture function as well. So here we're looking at transaction events. On this transaction for this example service, we have tacked on a request URL for each transaction that hits this service. And down here, we're seeing the count of transactions related to each URL that's being published, which is useful. This gives you, we can say that this URL is being hit, almost 5,000 times in the last hour. But we can see here that we have account ID hiding in the URL of this URL. And what the issue with that is it increases the cardinality of this substantially. So we're getting, different results for every single account because every single URL is unique by the account ID. So normally,
there's really no way
exists now.
Once you have like a scroll bar on the data table, I mean, maybe if it's one extra row, but once you're looking at a scroll bar, there's really no way to say, hey, this is like a useful data display for people, right? Because you're not going to get a sense quickly of like what's actually going on when every account by every URL is showing up as a separate row.
Yeah, exactly. And if you wanted to say how many times was the log patterns endpoint being hit, because it's spread out across all the accounts on different endpoints, different URLs, you can't actually know the global aggregate of how many things are hitting this endpoint, irrespective of the account, because it's hiding across all of these lines. So let's take a look at capturing some values. So what if we wanted to say how many endpoints are being hit by each account? So regardless of which endpoint they're hitting, which accounts are hitting the most? So what we can do here is use capture.
And what I'm really excited about is we added Regex literals, which is a much more simplified way of writing
like extreme quality of life improvement, right? To be able to use regex literals like this, right? Because you don't have to like double escape and stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people are a little bit wary of like teaching regex and saying like, hey, you can just use regex. There's a classic. Like, I guess, you could pop a few things in as a joke, but it's like, hey, a programmer has a problem and she decides to use awk to solve it. And now she has two problems, right? Where, like it's true that like, yes, it's a deep subject, but I actually think like most people really can like pick it up and you can certainly use just the parts that like I often use regex just with ranges and without special characters. I'm like, yeah, I'll just, like, it's one of these, like, okay, I'll just do, A-Z instead of putting in like /D, right? Because I'm just like, I don't want to use special characters. But when you're not using regex literals and you have to do your escaping, right? I think that it sort of starts to graduate into like, yeah, this is pretty tough. I'm asking you to learn this. Like, this is pretty tough, It's like trying to teach someone get rebase in an afternoon. Like,
Yeah, and just so people can see what the difference here. This is a regex literal, so it's defined with the prepending of R. This is the same syntax as Python, if you've used Python with regex literals. Over here is a string literal. Mm-hmm. And as we talked about just a second ago, the difference is this escaping here. So in regular string literals, you'd need to double escape to get /D. So if we did just /D, this would be incorrect. This is a failing string. So we can see that over here. Capture does accept string literals like this, but to do that correctly, we would need double escaping. And this gets very, very confusing, particularly because double escaping isn't always the case, because we have delimiters on the edge, things like single quotes are only one escape.
Yeah.
This gets very confusing. This does not happen in regex literals. Much simpler. So you don't have to worry about which things have double slashes and which ones don't. So what is this doing here? This is dot star, so match anything, with the suffix of slash accounts. So that's this string here in the middle. And then we are using a named capture group. The syntax is a little clunky here. We're probably going to revisit this in the future, but for now, this is the same as all RE2 syntax things. So Google's syntax they developed, RE2, is what we're using here.
Yeah.
And the name is going to be account. This is the name of the named capture group. And /d is digit.
Oh,
and
Ashton,
just,
while we
one or
step
more
through
of
this,
those.
will you hit run just so that we're not looking at the wrong or like different results? Keep going. Keep going on
Yeah.
the
Well,
All right.
Yep,
I don't mean this. I'm not trying to sequence break you on this one. Sorry. You were inflow. So /d is saying, hey, we're looking for a digit. Plus is one or more times, right? You can't have it 0 times, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So now, if we look at the bar chart here, now we can see, okay, compared to before, if you remember, the top one was 5,000, which was one of the URLs that account one hits. Now we can see that overall it's hitting, 19,000 endpoints across the stack.
But this also means because we're capturing out that account, it means we can do stuff like facet for a single account really easily, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, if we have some very standard, like incident or even customer service dashboard where we can say, hey, go ahead and facet this by account. If we didn't have the account ID previously, this capturing out could be extremely powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And if we go back to the original example, we can see that we're getting all of the top results here, but it's a very long list that will probably go down for a very long time. So what if we wanted to see all the endpoints that just account one is hitting and get rid of all of these extra noise? So this is an example where we can use it in the where clause. So if we go and use the same regex we're using before, and we're going to cast this into a numeric so we can do easier comparisons with it, and then do =1. So now we're extracting that value out of the URL like we were before, making it a number, and then saying if that equals 1, do that. So now what do we see here?
What's also great is think of this example of, say you have error codes and you define all your 500 error codes. You could specifically pull that out and look through it within your say Apache.
Yeah, and that's a really good example because if you just said, hey, show me everything like 500, right? 500 could show up in a few other contexts, right? So you say, hey, it has to be like prepended with the string error or what have you, right? So yeah, that's really, really nice. I mean, that's the thing is that, there's often a little bit, the reason that you don't see regex everywhere in every like metrics tool is because obviously you can make a pretty expensive query pretty quickly. But, by giving people, basic regex support, right? You can go so deep, so fast without like a computationally terribly expensive query at all. Like you don't have to get yourself into weird state machine problems just because you're like really want something that's like pretty detailed. Oh, love this.
Yeah. So now with it being filtered with this =1, we can actually see that account one is actually at a very low throughput, hitting a whole bunch of different URLs.
Yeah.
And these previously were completely drowned out by all of the URLs that existed before. So now we can see the full cardinality of the data, but filtering it by this single element in the middle. So another example following along with this account ID bit is what if we want to see the number of unique accounts that are hitting all of the endpoints? So if we want to see the number of customers that are just using these endpoints all together. Well, you can also use capture in the select clause, as said earlier, where the input here now is the account that is being extracted, and then we're doing a unique count on this. So let's get rid of these facets. Take a look at that. So now we can see that overall across all these endpoints, about 500,000 accounts are hitting all these endpoints. Now, clearly, the cardinality of that is way too high to get if you weren't doing some extraction out of this, because that means there is 500,000 unique URLs that are existing overall at minimum, likely some multiplier above that. This is another great example of things you can extract out of your data. Now, of course, as Alex had said earlier, if you are, say, extracting a duration here, so say you had some duration hiding in from Apache logs, you could do an average of this. Now we're going to have to do a numeric cast to make that work. Now I know this example is nonsense because we are averaging account IDs, but for example, apparently the average account ID is about 3 million. I don't know how useful that data point is, but you can see you can get useful data points out of this by doing these types of ranges.
What is the average account ID?
Yeah.
What's your phone number? Funny. Well, it's about 2.7 million.
Yeah,
that's actually really good.
What's very instrumental in this too is that, especially if we talk about a lot about log data that's just growing at a huge rate, and there's this is very useful because a lot of times you can instrument your log data when it's coming in and you know the shape of it, but log data is complex. Log data can come in all different shapes and sizes, and you don't know the shape of it always. But if you can run these, regex captures during the time of querying, you can change it, and you can figure out, the shape of your data, but you don't know exactly where it is. It's so much easier to do it at the time of querying rather than having to instrument it when you're ingesting it, which is just
I really love this. We did for Bit Project.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. Because what we had to do for like a use case, because I run a nonprofit where we actually use New Relic to keep monitor a lot of our students' applications, is that we have to actually run a query and export the CSV into like another software to like manipulate the data. But having regex in the query builder allows us to like reduce that step. So I'm super excited to actually use like the capture function to kind of lower our manual labor we need to do to get useful data out of our New Relic logs, which I'm super excited about because I found that New Relic log. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's an exceptionally powerful piece of. It's like that. Large strings are very common. Like it doesn't have to be like a log line. It doesn't have to be a URL. There's lots of things that are long strings that are structured but have too much noise surrounding them. So this last example here that I'll show is breaking up that URL in two different ways to get different values out of it. So now what we're doing is saying, get rid of the base URL, so the base of the URL, and we want to facet by account, extracting that out, and then the path that follows after. So in this case, if you had many services that had similar URL structures, you could extract out that base URL cardinality.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Now we could see account one, and we could see which endpoints are being hit. This simplifies the data a lot, and it's a lot easier to chart because now we have the account in one line and the path in the other line. This is much more readable than it was when it was a giant individual string.
Yeah, I really like this because this is sort of going to be my next question is, it's one thing to say, okay, how many requests are coming from the account or how many URLs for a single account, but this is really nice to see in general, what are the top accounts and what are they generally looking for? Yeah. And then we can label it out with extraction. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. So I could give 1,000 more examples because there's a lot of really interesting things you can do with regex capture, but I think I will leave it here.
Yeah, I feel like our last segment, which I loved, I was like continue to be like super excited about regex, and then I feel like the audience got a little tired. They're like, oh, more, okay, yes.
Okay, regex is really helpful, regex but it is one of the most
good. Yeah,
it's so annoying if you like are not a master at it because you have to go to the regex builder. If you all know the pain, you know the pain. If you've done it before.
Yeah. Just getting started, I was just Googling regex golf. I think it's down, but go find like a regex game and not regex crossword. Regex crossword will make anyone feel like an idiot. But go find one that just like starts, asking you to keep building more and more complex regex because it is so fun. It feels really satisfying. Yes, when I made an 8,000 character state machine in regex, I felt like maybe things had got a little bit far. That was for I think it was like find all numbers divisible by 7 or something. It was just like really, really tough, but otherwise is super fun. It's great to get into. Yeah, I mean, I think let's leave it here. Oh, I'm sorry, Ashton, go ahead.
Last two things, let me emphasize, if you are using a query builder, make sure you're using one that supports only the RA2 syntax. It's very easy to follow down a rabbit hole of a incorrect or an unsupported regex syntax and get frustrated when that does not work. We will have a public blog post going out soon that goes over this use case in more detail written out. So if you'd like to come back to this, there'll be a persisted version of this very similar topic in our blog post soon. Yeah,
if you're watching this on YouTube, there is a link to that blog post down below in the description. Speaking it into the future, but for our Twitch viewers, we'll get that up soon, and so watch social media for that. But I think we'll probably hold the YouTube until people can like watch and follow along and like copy paste similar queries. But this is fantastic, y'all. Thank you so much. I think we're going to go to BRB. We're going to have Brian Galano next. So there's another link. If you're watching this on YouTube, look down the bottom for using queries to filter. And if you're not quite at the regex point, getting some other smart data views. Thank you so much, Ashton, Alex. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And do you have anything you want to plug? Are you talking at a conference? You're doing anything else? You're going out to a 10,000 person picnic next weekend or something else you want people to show up at?
Not
for my end.
All right.
I do want to see a regex battle between Nika and Ashton on Twitch someday.
Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. No.
I do want to speak that into existence. So if y'all want to see that, please spam the chat with requests for Nika to go against Ashton on regex, because I will get the popcorn. I'll get the extra large popcorn to watch that.
I'll do like a non-competitive version of that. I'll be like, let's try and like I'll do regex golf for sure. I'll do like, see if you can do it in fewer characters, right? Like passing the same request back and forth. But like, who can write a better regex? No.
I feel like Ashton would win.
Yeah, no.
I feel like there's probably one person in chat who's super stoked for that.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, that sounds like the most boring thing I've ever heard in my life.
Anything can sound exciting with the right background music. So I'll make sure that I DJ and make sure that the right music is in the background.
This reminds me of, I believe it's called the Capgrass debate, where two mathematicians work to like try to write the largest number possible on the blackboard. That's one of my faves. It's like 1972. Y'all ever hear about this one? That's a really good. One of them starts by just writing a row of ones, and the other one comes by and runs their thumb along it, so it just says 11, and then factorial, 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 factorial. Right? They move on into beaver numbers. Okay, this is just symbolic mathematics. We don't need to talk about that.
Well, thanks for coming on the stream.
Thanks, everyone. I thought I'd end on the least accessible note possible.
Cheers.
All right,
see you guys.
That's Brian Galano. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll go to BRB. Thank you, Engineer Mia.